I didn't get into competition shooting to be a competitor. I got into competition shooting from what I saw. This would make me better at my real job. There's nothing bad about being faster and more accurate with a gun and being able to move dynamically. That stigma is going away pretty quick.
This is Beer 30, a podcast that connects badass people and shares their experiences over a cold one. Kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. And if you like it, don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Let's get started with today's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer 30. Today's episode is brought to you by UF Pro. I'm your host, Tanner Denton, and joining me today is Paul Costa, a Master Class USPSA shooter and CQB extraordinaire. Paul, thank you for coming on to the show. It's exciting to have you here. You got a great setup, like I was telling you before the show. I really love everything going on there. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Thank you. Extraordinaire, man. That's a strong word there. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we'll dive into it in this, but I mean, I've seen you work, man, and we've been friends for a good time now, and I've seen you do your stuff and do your craft. So extraordinaire. I'm kind of probably underselling it there, actually. So,
sure.
Yeah. So Paul, yeah, you're in law enforcement.
Yep.
And you're a special operations canine handler on a full-time team. You're more so on the door-busting side during the week. And then, like I mentioned, you're a USPSA Master Class shooter in carry optics when you're not doing that. So how long have you been a public servant? And what moved you into the tax side of things of actually doing CQB and stuff like that and working with dogs as opposed to just sitting and waiting for people to speed by you and writing citations for expired licenses and stuff like that?
I did that too. You know, you have to start in the beginning doing all that. I guess when I got into law enforcement, I guess to answer your first question, I have 18 years in service and still counting. So I'm still active while still doing the whole teaching thing. You know, everyone's journey, at least for our agency, which is a very large agency, there's thousands of us. You're going to start off on the road. You're going to be handling all the, what you referred to as writing citations, the domestic violence stuff, you know, all the different things, which I don't think is a negative. I think you have to do that side. I think you need to understand that side, especially because when you switch over to the more tactical side, those are your service providers, the people that you're helping, right? So when we get called out to a job, it's most likely because the officers that are doing the day-to-day operations and domestic and stuff, it's reached a level that they no longer feel like they can handle. And they've now requested additional assets to come support them, right? So if you don't know that job, how can you really do a good job at helping them? Because on the dog side, we do a lot of stuff, man. It's from, you know, search warrants assist, fugitive apprehension, woodland operations for anything is a missing child, all the way to, you know, armed and dangerous suspects, you know, the whole gamut, right? So it could be as simple as a narcotic sniff, right? And if you don't understand interdiction and stuff like that, how can you help that officer on the side of the road to basically utilize your tool the most effective way? So you really got to know that job, I feel like, so then you can then work backwards and say, okay, I know that job. How now can I help you with this additional tool that I have? And obviously our primary tool is the dog, right? That is the force multiplier that we like to bring to the party. And then we are, I guess, considered the subject matter experts of that. So regardless of who we're supporting, our main tool is the dog, right? So whether it's on the tactical side, which I support many teams. So I have my team that I support, which is a full-time team. And then I'm deputized as a U.S. Marshal, support the regional DEA and FBI teams, a couple county teams, local teams. And it's not just me. There's plenty of guys like me doing the same job. But we'll go out and support anybody we can. And to do that, we really need to be pretty fluent in all different types of tactics and different things because every team that we support does something different. And my job as special operations canine handler as a support role requires me to understand how they're going to handle business and then guide them in how they can use this tool to make them safer. I know that was like a long way, and I don't think I actually answered your question. So I guess to go back, how did I end up in this? Well, I started out on the road like everybody else did. I did that. Always kind of had a passion for firearms. Found my way into an aggressive tactical patrol unit. Did that for a little bit, and then inherently those guys would get moved to the range to teach firearms. So then I ended up becoming the assistant range master there. But at that time, it wasn't a real spot. Now it's a real spot. But in my time, It was just like, hey, you're gonna do this, but it was kind of like you were still housed in another unit, you know? Now it's more organized and a little more professional. While I was there, did that for about, I guess, 6 or 7 years or so, and I really enjoyed it. But it kinda burnt me out, man, because, I care. I put everything I have into anything that I do, and, it was tough teaching people that don't really wanna be there. So, once I kinda felt the burn on that, I was like, "Okay, I gotta start looking for a new home," and I had some friends already that were on the canine side of the house, and I was talking to them, and I was already interested back in the day, like, it was stimulated early on from the academy because they bring in all the specialized units and stuff. You can say, "Hey, man," our agency will say, "Hey, these are all the special things that we have that you can do one day," right? So the dog guys came down, or some of the representatives from them, not all of them, obviously, the unit's big. And, it piqued my interest. But obviously, that kind of goes to the back of your brain because that's not a real option right now. You have to do your time and learn the job before you can go learn another job. So once I kind of started exhausting the options within field operations, I had started to look for a new home, and then I started just reaching out to resources that I had developed over the years of who was in these particular units, and ended up going over to that side and then doing that's where I'm currently at. Been doing that for like the last 10 or 11 years.
Okay, so how long have you been working with your current dog? Have you switched between dogs? I mean, have you gone through multiple dogs, or are you usually just stuck with one?
So it's very dependent on your dog, right? And they're just like humans. If they get injured early or something happens, they could be out of service pretty quick, or they can run the gamut and stay in service for a very long time. So I'm still on my first dog. I've been fortunate. Although he's had some crazy injuries, like he broke his jaw and stuff and different things, he's been able to recover from all that stuff and stay in service. And he's currently still in service, but he's definitely he's on the out. He's getting old.
Yeah. He's gone the slower side. He's letting other dogs go first this time.
Yeah, we don't really, we'll still do. So he's cross-trained. He's an explosive dog as well. So I'll utilize him for that. He's more than capable of doing that. Very good. I would say on the SWAT integration side and things like that, he's definitely shows his age in the agility aspect, but definitely not the mental side. Like, he gets the game. He understands the game. And that's kind of the sad part about it, man, too. It's like when they get older and like they get so much experience, like they understand the game so well, but then they just lack just like us, right? They just lack the agility and the mobility to be able to do that stuff. Like getting him to like have to jump through like a car window on somebody would just be like not going to happen, probably. He would want to do it, like he would be full into it, but he'd probably just face plant to the side of the freaking door.
Yeah, they're just like us. I mean, we are fortunate enough to, whenever we get to that position, we're like, okay, I'm going to be a coach or something like that. I'm going to be able to share my knowledge with other people, and because I've done it before and I know how to do it and everything. But with dogs, it's just like, they gotta just exist.
It's over, man. Yeah.
So
he's still in service, but he's not being used in the tactical stuff for the most part. So just pretty much doing the explosive stuff now.
Okay. Wow. Well, you said he broke his jaw. I mean, was this on like a call where you're chasing down dudes and stuff like that, or
No,
was it just a mishap or what?
This was in training. It was a training evolution that we were doing, and he came in really hard on the guy, and just one of those freak things, man. Like, I guess the way he took the bite came in hard, all the pressure went in the one spot, and it peeled the whole top of his jaw right up. But he stayed on the bite, stayed in it. I mean, these dogs are so resilient, man. They're so tough. Like, he wasn't fazed by it at all. And honestly, I didn't notice it from his behavior. The decoy is like, yo, dude, I think his like tooth popped out or something, because like it was like his gum was kind of over it. And I was like, let me see. I took him off the bite, and then like his whole upper jaw was just like broken. But they were able to fix it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, good on them. I'm glad that wasn't a career-ending thing
It totally,
for them. But
totally could have been, right? Because also that could have been like, different dogs, we call them single event teachers, right? Like, they go to do something and they have like a negative result from it, and then they don't want to do that anymore, right? They're like, okay, well, last time I bit this guy, I lost half my jaw. Okay, I don't want to play that game anymore, right? luckily he has that right demeanor. He's that right type of dog. That didn't slow him down one bit. And, he kept on trucking along once he was healed, which it took a little while. It was months, forget exactly how much, but he got right back in.
Well, that's good. You're going on, I don't know how often you're doing it nowadays, but would you call it raids? Are you going on raids or what do you call it?
Yeah. So,
whenever you're going to houses and stuff like that.
You could call them whatever you want. A lot, they're referred to as raids, right? But really what they are search warrant executions, right? So we have search warrant executions and then we have fugitive apprehensions, which legally it's different, right? It's you have a body warrant for an individual that you're looking for, not a search warrant for the residence. So there's different, obviously, rights that people have depending on where you're encountering a fugitive for body warrants and what you can and can't do with making entry and different stuff like that. And I don't want to get too much into that, but there's different rules for what we can do and can't do with particular types of warrants. So yeah, it'll be the day-to-day operation is, search warrants, fugitive apprehension, the apprehension, woodland operations, tracks, things like that, whether it's high risk or, the missing kid, something like that. A lot of narcotic, I don't have a narcotic dog, but like narcotic work, explosive work. So whether that's just sweeping areas like, dignitary buildings, state buildings and stuff like that have, dignitaries coming in and things like that, they'll want explosive sweeps and different things like that of that nature. And then obviously training takes up a large portion as well, because if we're not doing our roles and responsibilities, we're not required to do anything else, because we don't do any regular service calls unless we're called there. So in the downtime, we just train and try to get better.
So in your training, since you are actually doing law enforcement stuff, where does competition shooting come into play? How does that help you in any way? Because I know a lot of guys out there, they separate competition shooting and real world. Some people maybe in a older way of thinking will say they have no place. They're not related in any way other than the gun. How I know that that's not true, but how would you describe how competition shooting has helped you and how you use it to your advantage?
Yeah, sure. So we'll take a step back on that, right? Because I think especially in law enforcement and the military side, now with social media and how there's so much information out there, I think younger guys coming up are not going to have the preconceived notions of competition shooting. But when I was coming up, it wasn't talked about, right? Like we stuck in our world. We did what we did. We surrounded ourselves with what we felt were the subject matter experts. So like your tier 1 organizations like CAG and, stuff like that. Like we looked at those guys as the subject matter experts and we took everything from them. So like our shooting was done from them. Our CQB was done from them. Like anything that we would need to, improve upon, it was solely done from their lens and what they did. Right. So coming up like that, like inherently when you're looking at like shooting, I graded shooting on what they graded shooting on and what they thought was valuable, right? And a lot of that just kind of came down to, like, hey man, like who am I to question these guys? They've killed whatever the stories are, right? Whether it's true or not, like hundreds of guys, and we're like, yeah, man, like that's what shooting looks like. That's what it needs to be done. That's what we focus on. And then the information that they provided us, we took that as gospel, right? So I went down that journey with only training with those types of resources for a very long time. And then I was also at the range for a very long time. So, I was sharing that information that was shared with me. I was also training a lot, but I wasn't getting any better. But since I was stuck in like my microcosm of like, I saw what I thought right looked like, and then I knew where I stood, where I was according to that, to their scale. And I was like, okay, like I'm not far off. I just got to work a little bit harder and I'll reach that level. But I had no real depth of understanding of like what people were really capable of, because I was never exposed to it. Right. So, and I never like looked at competition shooting as like a viable option, because it also wasn't, early on. You didn't see televised, or they're not televised still, but Instagram didn't show guys with their matches and stages and stuff like that. At that time I wasn't even on Instagram. So it just wasn't a thing. I think like YouTube was like James Yeager or something like that, You had like the Magpul dynamic stuff, like that was it. Like that was the resources, right? So, and I didn't really focus on the internet as a viable resource. So it was just hands-on experience with the guys that we would bring in, or the guys that I would go seek out, because I've spent, and I continue to spend tons of my own money seeking out experts in particular fields that I'm looking to gain more knowledge in. So I guess the crossover for me was I got injured on a job where it put me out for like 9 months. So I would messed up my leg, couldn't really do anything. So I had nothing but time, right? So I was like, okay, I got nothing but time. Can't really do any like moving stuff. It was tough to lift weights. I was like, I'm just going to shoot like every day. So I just started shooting every day. I go to the range in this leg cast and I could barely move. And I just like keep shooting bill drills. Well, during that, because since I'm home all day and, you'll shoot for, a couple hours and then I'll go back the next day and do it. I had a lot of time to like dive into stuff because I'm not going to jobs anymore, I'm not running around, So I had a lot of free time just to do research. Started coming across, competition things. So I started looking at that. And then I was like, you know what, man, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just going to go to a match. So I went to a match in my leg cast. And obviously, not only skill level was I not good, but I've lost like the number one thing that you really need, which is like speed to blend positions and stuff. So I wasn't even able to move. But what that did was it gave me a little bit of a deeper understanding of what guys were capable of. Right. And then I started looking at the stages and I'm like, man, dude, like this could kind of be like CQB, like you're especially the way we do CQB, it's free flow, it's points of domination. You're on the move. I'm like, this is essentially a stage and developing all those hard skills. And although I couldn't do that because I'm in a leg cast, I still saw the value in it. So right then and there, like it kind of like sparked a light bulb, but I still had no clue how I was going to like start to develop that skill to make it correlate over to what I did every day. And like, that was the goal. I didn't get into competition shooting to be a competitor, right? I got into competition shooting because from what I saw, this would make me better at my real job, right? So I ended up somehow in a JJ Rakaza class. I forget what year that was, maybe like 2015 or 16 or something, I don't know. And although that wasn't a heavy shooting, like there was a lot of shooting, but JJ didn't really teach a ton of shooting, right? It was more about exits, entries, movements. And that kind of opened my eyes again because I started seeing all these guys from different walks of life shooting normal guns. It wasn't like race guns, And I was like, wow, man, like there's something here and I need to figure this out. So that's where I really started to dive into that journey. And I started taking a more practical approach to shooting because I felt it would help me for my actual job. And what I discovered and, what I teach is there's so much value. There's nothing bad about being faster and more accurate with a gun and being able to move dynamically and be able to index that gun on a very small spot and have it land precisely and be able to rail on a trigger and collect your points, right? So, I don't know if, I'm sure there's plenty of people that still think that, right? But I think that stigma is going away pretty quick because of Instagram and the resources. And you see a lot of guys coming over to do that, right? Like, and there's plenty of stuff in competition that doesn't correlate over to what we do. But it really doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out, okay, like, yes, I have to do this for part of the game. But that's if your focus is like developing skill for a defensive minded person or law enforcement, like how much energy you put in that particular thing is up to you, Like I guess a low level example of that would be drawing a gun with your strong hand and passing it over to your support hand, right? Like that is something that you have to do for classifiers and things in stages for competition. But that makes no sense in real life. Why would I draw a gun with my good hand and then be like, you know what? I'm going to make this a little harder. I'm going to put it in my support hand. Like there's things like that. So yes, do I practice that kind of stuff? Of course, because it's part of the game. But it obviously, it doesn't consume a large portion of my training because that's not helping me realistically for what I do day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're in these actual competitions, or I guess whenever you're gearing up for these, how many rounds are you shooting a year? Because I know a lot of law enforcement is, well, not enough law enforcement is given an allotted amount of ammo per year. A lot get way less or not even any at all, but some get a certain amount, and sometimes they don't shoot even that. But because we all know, I mean, in order to get better at shooting, you should probably be shooting.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people brag about shooting like 60,000 plus rounds a year. I mean, so I don't know. How many are you shooting as a law enforcement officer and a competition shooter? What's your round count up to per year on average?
So I think I'm going to take a step back from that question, and I'll come back to that, Tanner, because it's important. A lot of cops take the perspective of like, hey, if my department should provide me with everything that I need to be capable at my job. I've never subscribed to that because I figured that out pretty quick. Like, and I would say like as soon as I got out of the academy, I was like, man, I am like grossly unprepared to really do anything, right? And it was pretty evident because like you go through the training, you get done, and then you get on coach, and that's 3 months, and you're like, yeah, I know the job, I know the procedures, but there was especially at the time when I got in, there was very limited tactical training. There was very limited. The shooting packages were very basic, your standard stuff. And even though I didn't know what right looked like, I knew that's what it wasn't, right? So I was like, I don't know what right is, but I know this is definitely fucked up. So I always was spending a ton of my own money going to other courses, shooting courses, tactical courses, trying to gain knowledge because it wasn't being given to us. So a lot of cops take that approach of like, well, if the department wants me to be good at this, they need to provide me time and resources to be good at this. And what you'll find is no department, and I mean no department outside of maybe like Delta, right, in like the military, because even in like Ranger regiments and things like that, they don't have unlimited ammo to provide those guys. So like if you're waiting for that, it's never going to happen. It's unrealistic. And even though like we have a lot of support and we have a lot of resources, even at the team level, it's not nearly enough to what I would actually need to cultivate the skill level that I think is required. So there's definitely some onus that falls on the individual to go seek out that training, put a lot of time and money into it. And I think most cops, and it's changing, but at the time, most cops look at it like, well, if they want me to be good at this, they should be providing that. So even from the jump street, I was shooting. I was just not paying attention to the correct stuff. So I was just I shouldn't say wasting ammo. Like I got better, right? Because when you suck, just picking the gun up more, you'll inherently just get better at weapons handling and, setting a grip, what you think is correct, So like, yeah, I did get better, but eventually you'll get to like, I would say like a lower intermediate level where you'll never get past that if you're not paying attention to the right stuff. So to get back to answer your question, what I was shooting early on in my journey was still, exponentially more. I was always shooting monthly, to where when I got into the dog side of the house, we were shooting a lot more together as a group. There's a bunch of guys that were into it. So we were just regularly going to the range and shooting more. So now it became, weekly for the most part, maybe by, weekly to a couple times a month, depending on what we had going on, different things, to all the way to now where I probably shoot 3 to 4 days a week, every week, with dry fire as well, coupled into that. In dry fire is kind of broken down into like smaller bursts, heavy attention and focus in like 10-minute spans, and then I put it down. So to answer your question, I guess like how many rounds am I shooting? That will also, so you said like build up to like a match and stuff like that. I don't take matches that serious, and it's not because I'm not competitive. I am competitive, but I use matches regularly as training tools, not as matches. So like I will regularly try something that would probably be a bad idea, but I'll try it in a match just to see, right? And if you're playing it for like to win, that kind of stuff is pretty stupid because competition, especially if you have better dudes at the match, they don't allow you to have one miss, let alone try some crazy thing where you're going to eliminate a position with taking, partials at 25 yards on the move and then like Delta mic it, like you're not going to come back from that. Right. So to me, I still although I'm competitive and I want to do good, I will regularly still try to execute things that when I have these little ideas in my head, knowing that like there's very low probability that it will be successful. But that's not like my main focus, right? Like, cause like I said, like I don't view myself as a competitor. I use matches as a training tool. And through those matches, I identify stuff and then I go back and work on those individual things where I saw particular things present themselves, right? So I don't have like a workup towards a match. I'm just constantly always shooting and I'm always just trying to get better, right? So like it's always the same thing, building a more durable, consistent grip, being able to press the trigger super aggressively at farther distances and maintain, surgical accuracy, being able to run the gun, harder at farther distances, because a lot of that, like, build drills, just being able to try to do like, I'm not there, but like try to get to a point where like one day, like I can do a sub 2-second build drill at 25 yards and, hold all alphas, like trying to figure out all those nuances. And then, I have like my competitions things where like I focus on target transitions and blendings and exits and entries and how to be more efficient with that. And my training really just looks like a pish posh of focusing all on those different aspects throughout my training and just trying to build a little bit more skill in all those particular categories. What that looks like round count wise is probably roughly around, 50,000 rounds of pistol. I definitely shoot more pistol. Rifle is probably around 25 to 30. This year will probably be heavier on rifle because I started changing some stuff that I did with rifle. So I went through like a couple months early on where I shot 15,000 rounds of rifle, like I would say in like a month and a half. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Cause I was validating and I was trying to figure out some different stuff with mount heights and mounts and different connections and how I interface with the rifle. And then using different platforms and different muzzle devices and how does that change and does it affect what I can get away with particular mounts? So that required a lot.
You need a good sample size. You can't just shoot for 10 minutes and then be like, all right, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So I had to burn through a lot of rounds. So like in that phase, I focus a lot more on rifle.
Okay.
So now I kind of think I have what I like. So I'll go back to more of like still trying to develop skill, right? But it's not going to be that heavy of a round count. A rifle, I mean, it's just too expensive,
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, so you shoot pistol a lot more. Everyone knows that, well, anyone that shoots knows that pistol requires just a little more input from your brain and skill level. Is that why you're shooting pistol more? Is it just because you like pistol more? I mean, or is it the fact that pistol is just inherently a little harder?
So I think it's a kind of a culmination of all of that, right? Like one, pistol I do believe is harder. Two, I do believe a lot of the same stuff that you focus on with pistol transfers over to rifle. You just don't have a grip, you have a mount, right? But all the same visual things and stuff like that correlate over to rifle. And I feel like you're training a lot of those things while shooting pistol. Two, pistol is, depending on what you're doing, like especially for work, like when I was running my dog a lot, pistol was my primary weapon. So, I mean, I'm surrounded by a bunch of guys with rifles, right? But as a guy running a dog, I traditionally just had a pistol. So that was a primary focus. Now that I don't use my dog as much, I'm running a rifle. So that is a primary weapon. But in the early stages, like a lot of the stuff went towards pistol. And then obviously competition, when I got into that, that's obviously heavily pistol driven. Now we have PCSL, right? But before that, it was just PCC. Which is not rifle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun, right? And there's a lot of value in it, but it's not apples to apples. The guns behave different. You're shooting pistol stages with, a pistol caliber rifle. So a lot of the same teaching points aren't there. Like you'll see in a PCSL match that I want to say probably last year just came out, maybe year and a half, right? Has been out. So a lot of that stuff wasn't really available. And honestly, I really enjoy pistol due to the complexity of it. And there's so much meat on the bone still there for me where it's just like, God, man, I just got so much work to do. Like it's,
there's always something to do. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you want to be good, and like you said, you are competitive in nature. So it's like, dude, I can get better than this. I know I can. So just keep working on pistol. Earlier, you mentioned that you like to use matches and competitions as training, and you like to test out things that you couldn't in the real world. Speaking of that, so some people that listen to this will probably follow you on Instagram. I absolutely do. And there is something that I love to show people whenever people talk about, well, I'm using a level 2 retention holster, so I can't really scoop draw or anything. You are an avid practicer of a scoop draw. So, and I have seen you have videos on your Instagram of you scoop drawing out of a Safari Lane holster, which is a level 2. So you have to depress a button or a lever to get it out of the actual holster itself. I'm a stabber, and a lot of people are, where they just stab down, grab it and pull it out and go. While a scoop draw, I mean, you're going from point A to point B as quick as possible, correct?
Yeah. So like that was why the scoop draw was created, right? So your different types of draws, you have like a snatch, you have your stab, and then you have your scoop. The scoop, I think, is slightly faster. Now dudes will argue that, right? Because some guys are really, really fast at a snatch draw. The stab nobody really uses because that requires you to bottom out on the gun and then regain momentum, right? So most guys are kind of like plucking the gun, which I refer to as like a snatch. There's probably a million names for it, right? So they're coming at the gun and they're just kind of lifting it out of the holster. So they come down, but they never drive all that force down and then come up, right? The scoop is basically being able to get the gun to go from straight out of the holster and index to what you're trying to shoot. So I think most people gain a 1/10 or 2/10 depending on their draw with a proper scoop. Now, why I started doing it out of an ALS holster was solely just to see if I could do it, right?
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I wouldn't say there's a lot of value for law enforcement to put the time and energy in developing a very on-demand scoop draw out of an ALS holster, right? Like, that was time-consuming, without a doubt. It's cool, and I like it, and I've definitely seen the speed benefits from it, right? Like, I'm able to get 0.7s and 0.6s out of an ALS holster where the gun index is on target, So the speed's there. I've built the consistency into the draw stroke where I feel like I'm just as consistent with any other draw stroke with it, but that wasn't absent of work. And I could argue the other side of it is saying that energy put into that would have been better suited putting into other things. But nonetheless, I wanted to be able to do it. I like it. It also kept my draw strokes consistent with competition and real life. But if we're really talking about like real life, my gun's in my hand from Jump Street. There is no draw stroke. Like you get out of the car with the gun in your hand for the work that I do.
Yeah, that was going to be something I touched on is how practical would trying to practice a scoop draw or be the most efficient out of a holster as possible be for someone in your position?
So for my particular role, the draw stroke is not even like a thing, Like guys either have a rifle in their hands, or if it's the dog guy, he's got his pistol already in his hand as well until it becomes time to like where that's not needed. And maybe it's switching over to doing the dog stuff. And then you would holster. But if you're holstering, you've got a slew of dudes with rifles pulling security, supporting you so you can work that dog in that particular application. So your weapon is not vital in your security. So for the average officer, draw stroke could be critical, right? With how quickly we get that, because you're always reactive. We're always reacting to some type of stimulus. There's a processing component there of like being able to identify that it's a threat and then be able to articulate that it meets the use of force policy, where your adversary has already made that decision to fight. So he's already ahead of the power curve mentally, even if he hasn't presented the weapon yet, right? So we have to wait for that stimulus, process that, and then react to that. So definitely for a patrol officer, having an efficient draw stroke is important. Would I say they should double down on the scoop draw out of it? Probably not. It's definitely not going to be as consistent. Like mine's is consistent because I've dumped a ton of time into it, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But I think for the average guy who's in law enforcement, I would rather them spend their time, if they're actually going to put dry fire time in, on paying attention to other things like, hey man, how do I develop a good, durable, consistent grip smashing on this trigger and make sure I don't disrupt the sights? Like, spend all your time on that,
Yeah,
not
absolutely. Because every single body cam shooting that we see on wherever it is, whether it's Instagram for some reason or YouTube, every single one of them with a pistol and an officer is reacting to a threat. It is bang, 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 squeezing, shooting as fast as you can because your life is in danger, someone else's life is in danger, and you're, like you said, you're always reacting. So, yeah, I mean, focusing on being able to shoot as fast as possible while still remaining accountable and on target is probably something you should be working on rather than shaving off 0.2 seconds from your draw.
Yeah. And a lot of that too, man, like if we're really looking at it, like this will probably be somewhat controversial, but I would say the draw stroke is not what's going to save you regardless. It's going to be your ability to process information and micro identifiers that are going to show you criminal behavior and that something's about to happen, right? So like the sub-second draw, yes, do I want that? Sure. But that's not going to fix me being so far behind the power curve that I'm waiting for him to start shooting, right? Like I need to start seeing behaviors that are indicative with, something nefarious and being able to articulate that. As I'm seeing that, I'm starting to position myself in a better spot to react, right? Maybe I put my hand on my gun at that point, right? Like there is no draw stroke, right? There's no rules to this, right? It's like whatever I see, and through training and experience with dealing with more people, you start to see commonalities with criminal behavior and how they posture and how they react to uncomfortable positions. And when you see those things, you should start prepping yourself to do other things, right? Like that's what's going to keep you ahead of the power curve, really not whether you have a phenomenal draw stroke, in my opinion. Now, do I still want it? Sure, dude, I still want it, right? But I don't believe that's absolutely going to make up for your lack of processing, different criminal indicators. Because I think by the time, if you wait till he's already shooting, man, dude, like you have listen, sure, mate, maybe you could come back, right? Like, but that's a lot to fight out of, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so get off your phone, stop watching Netflix in your patrol vehicle, or stop looking at the advertisements while you're walking along. You mentioned earlier that whenever you started shooting more and more, and it started going from monthly to even weekly, you've told me before that you've actually gotten a monthly sort of program that you put together with a bunch of local guys that are super purpose driven and want to get better at shooting. I mean, could you tell me a little more about that? Does that include some of the guys that you work with on a day-to-day basis, or what does that consist of?
Yeah, so that whole thing started because when I started teaching, I was just teaching in my area, right? And this is why, like, people always see, like, when you come out the course and stuff like that, nothing like has the same form factor, right? Because when I started teaching locally where I'm at, I was teaching a lot of the same guys, and I was very thankful to have a lot of the same students. And early on, it was like the same 50 dudes, and they filled every class, and not all 50, but between those 50, I would fill every class and teach. But with that, I had to constantly keep changing and pushing them and challenging them. I couldn't get comfortable doing the traveling roadshow of, this is my curriculum. I run around, I teach this curriculum, and it's new to everybody that sees it because it's a new group, right? So to kind of like make a long story short, that kind of involved a little bit into my teaching style of just being able to identify groups and then provide them as much as I can. And then also with those guys, it was a way to kind of reward them and thank them for staying with me so long and being loyal. And then obviously the price is extremely cheap. It's $150. And what it's turned into is, and it changes, right? Like it started off with like 30 guys in the group, and we met up every month, and it was just constantly progressing, right? So you're never doing the same stuff. And there may be some of the similar things like, doubles, me, I'm a big proponent of doubles, right? So early on, like doubles was always a portion because I believe heavily in the value that it adds if you're paying attention to the correct stuff. But then we're always looking to just constantly like layer, make drills more complicated, pay attention to specific things. And what happened with that group was about half of them weren't doing the work when they weren't shooting with me. They were just showing up. And then a bunch of guys just never showed up. Right. So they were paying regardless, but not showing up. And the guys that were got really good. And they were also doing like the work on their own with the dry fire and then also shooting. And we got done with our first year of it. And I had to like make like a decision. I was like, okay, I have to cut this group like down dramatically, or I have to slow down the guys or the 10, 12 guys that were really into it. So I said, you know what? Screw it. I'll trim the fat. I'm going to take the 12 guys and we'll continue to push on. And then as I identify guys from private trainings and courses and things like that from the area, I'll offer them opportunities to join into this program. So then it grew back up to 20 or so guys. And that's it's capped now. I can't take any more into that. And that particular group that we have, everybody shows up now. So everybody's super in it. There's a lot of cops in it now, which is great. A lot of different county SWAT guys and stuff that have embraced it. They're in, and dude, it's great, man. And dude, it's great for me too, because it's not done from like I'm on my pulpit talking about everything. Like everyone there is already developed as a shooter. Like we don't have to talk about grip. Like we don't have to talk about all the stuff. It's just like quick little reminders. And a lot of times I don't have to say anything. They're all at the level where they already know it. You know, there's Master Class guys there, A class guys there. Like there's a lot of good shooters, and it's become more of like a community. We're all kind of pushing each other to get better, right? Like that group's great, man, because like that's not somewhere like I can dick off. If I make the slightest mistake, like 5 dudes will beat me, and I'll be like, you know, like regularly that happens, right? Like they're that good where like they're right there, man, you know? So it's a great group to train with. It's a great group to have. I'm super appreciative of those guys' hard work and dedication. And it's been super like rewarding to see it because I've gotten to see a lot of their journeys. And, you know, not to be misspeak about it, but some of them are really, really bad shooters. And within like a year or two, dude, if like they could beat me at some shit, like, you know, like if I don't pay attention, like they're going to put it on me, you know? So like when I look at like what my journey took to get to here, and then I look at like what their journey took, it's like, it feels good because it's like, okay, man, like this validates that I've figured out, if you're willing to put the effort in, I have figured out how to definitely drastically shorten this learning curve where like if you pay attention to the important stuff, like you will be a very good shooter very quick if you're willing to put the dedication in. So like getting guys to go from like can't even hit a target at 25 yards like at all to now being at a master class shooting level in a year, year and a half, like they're like, damn, man, like this is the way. Like, you know, like because dude, I mean, I shot for a very, very long time, and it wasn't lack of effort and it wasn't lack of resources because I was dumping a ton into it. But like we kind of mentioned before, I wasn't paying attention to the specific cues and important things to actually figure out that next layer of shooting. And I kind of just stayed mediocre at best for a very, very long time. So now, you know, when I get a hold of people, even brand new shooters, like we are talking about everything that I would teach, you know, those guys in that class, I just, you know, maybe kind of tier it or layer it a little bit different to be a little bit more palatable for somebody that's zero understanding, you know?
Okay. Yeah. And when you mentioned you're not really instructing as much in this sort of monthly thing because these guys are all, most of them are good to go, but you do own your own training business, which is Broken Arrow Defense. And you're also an instructor alongside of UF Pro. Viewers know Rick from Achilles Heel Tactical. We've done a series with him, actually a number of series with him on UF Pro, and then Dave as well, which we will probably want to do a series with you and Dave doing your guys' things. But do all three of you and Achilles Heel Tactical teach the same thing, or are you guys following a sort of rough guideline or do your own spin on things? Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I've taken class with so-and-so from Achilles Heel. I don't need to take another one with anyone because I've already taken Achilles Heel class. I mean,
yeah. So
it's a good question, what goes on?
Right. And I guess the way I look at it from my lens is I think we all kind of believe in the same principles, right? but we're all products of our own environments and training and experiences and where we found success. So with that, you're going to see that we approach shootings at some different ways. We focus on specific things that we have found value in our own individual training and experiences, right? Especially like when you look at Dave, right? Perfect example of this would be like performance IWB is pretty popular, right? So like you look at all the guys teaching performance IWB, your Santis, your Donovans, your Scott Jelinskis and stuff, right? When you take a guy like Dave, right? Or you take a guy like Bill Rapier, right? Things, when they look at it that lens, like just the holster setup alone would be a hard stop, right? Because to get the performance that they're trying to quest to get out of IWB, that needs the holster setup to be, the gun to be more accessible, right? And I'm not talking about garment wise. I'm just talking about like the height of the gun so they can get the grip quicker and all that stuff. Well, the more you make that gun accessible for you, the more you make it accessible for somebody else when you're fighting, right? So like a guy like Dave uses very specific equipment and techniques and different things for the way he views EDC, IWB shooting, right? And it's going to have limitations with speed because the goal, like we just mentioned, that I said before, it's not going to be like the draw stroke, right? It's going to be all the pre-indicators of violence that are coming in that is going to keep you ahead of that power curve. And Dave looks at that as like, well, most likely I'll end up with an entanglement with this guy before it comes time to brandish that weapon. And that holster needs to be positioned and secured a certain way to make that a viable option to roll around with somebody. Well, if you took one of those IWB holsters that most guys are using, and I'm not knocking on it, right? Like, it's fun and it should be allowed. But like when we're talking about like, how are we different? Well, it's the way a lot of us are different in the community because it's like, what's our scope? Who are we trying to teach? What's our message? And a lot of that is cultivated on our belief system of what we've been training our whole lives for, right? So Dave's is very purist in nature. Like he takes EDC from the EDC lens of like combatives, like prong with blades, fists, guns, the whole thing put together in a package. And a lot of that stuff will be a little bit different than the way I or Rick might approach performance shooting. But that's because the lens that he's looking from is a little bit different. And I think that's good, right? Like we obviously we don't argue with each other, like the principles of shooting, the fundamentals of shooting, like that's all consistent. Like once the gun's out, we all agree, like pick small spots, grip the pistol in a durable, consistent manner, smash on the trigger if the target difficulty allows it based on your skill level. And, that will lead you to success. So we all our training methodologies of when the gun is out on how to develop skill is all there. But the things that we nerd out on and focus on are a lot of is based from our experiences and our training pipelines. And I think that's good as a company, right?
Yeah,
if we were all clones of Rick, like who the hell would train with me? You're right. Like if I'm just a clone of Rick, just go train with Rick. Like I've seen that in the industry because I've been in the industry, I guess, a little while now, working for different companies before I've worked with Rick. And I mean, you see it to the point where guys even use the same jokes as the primary instructor. It's like they just are verbatim a shitty version of the original guy. It's like, dude, that to me, that's not a successful business model, right? So like when I look at it, it's like, hey, dude, if you're going to come together as a team, and it's just like a team at work, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all offer different things, and we all have a scope and lens that we look at stuff from, and how do we put that together, and how do we capitalize on that, and work together as a team. And I think for the consumer, that's a good thing. So, yeah, dude, we're different in a lot of ways, but we're rooted in the fundamentals and the principles of shooting. But like Dave will do stuff that I don't even touch or want to even put my brain energy towards. It's just like outside of my scope of understanding. And I'll do things, and Rick does things like Rick does long range. I don't do anything long range. I don't understand it. I don't care to understand it. I have no energy to understand it, right? And it's not because it's not cool. It's just like, being good at pistol and rifle is a challenge in itself, let alone to add long range into that, right? Like,
absolutely.
To me, it's just I'm not looking to be like a jack of all trades. There's specific things that I know I only have so much time that I can focus on, and it's pistol, carbine, night vision, and CQB. And those are the things that I focus on. And that's literally like that's like all I could probably take on and still be very capable and proficient and constantly growing at. that makes sense. Luckily, they all have,
Yeah, no,
they
absolutely.
all cross over for me, right? Like shooting is shooting, whether it's CQB or night vision, things like that. So I have a lot of crossover in the things that I teach that allow me to multitask them. But, you know, Dave does as well with his whole program. So I think we all kind of are different in a lot of ways, but we're not like contradicting each other at the same time.
Yeah, I finally was able to go to one of Dave's classes the other day, and it was his pistol combatives. And I've been to your classes, I've been to Rick's classes, and never have I ever been so impressed by new knowledge from Dave, because again, it's something that you guys don't teach, but the core principles are still there. There's nothing to be argued with there. It's just like, oh wow, like my range of knowledge of this just got expanded by way more just because of how he was teaching. So yeah, I think it's very healthy for not only the brand but just you guys as people to not be copying one another.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. Well, Paul, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Be sure to leave any comments that you have for us or Paul down below, and keep an eye out for the next Beer 30 episode.
Thanks, Tanner. Appreciate it, buddy.
So there you have it. This concludes another episode of UF Pro's Beer 30 podcast. Want more information about UF Pro and tactical clothing for professional end users? Then please visit ufpro.com or follow our channels on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.